So many of us have been taught to push through, carry it all, and put ourselves last, especially mums. But what if our body is actually the most powerful communicator we have, guiding us towards clarity, energy, and joy? In this episode of Happily Ever After What Now, I am joined by my coach, Debbie Lim from Debbie Lim Creative. She's here to talk about moving from burnout to embodiment. We explore how to reclaim your sovereign energy and your self-trust, why having it all doesn't mean having to hold it all, and how listening to your body can help you create a life that feels lighter, more abundant, and truly your own. If you've been wondering what life looks like after burnout and how to move forward differently, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. We all grew up watching fairy tales featuring Prince Charming, but not everyone gets the happy ever after they had in their dreams. So what are you supposed to do when your fairy tale ends? When everything you thought you knew falls apart? Welcome to Happily Ever After What Now? I'm Kiri, honey, a confident communication coach for women, sharing my own experience after infidelity to help women learn to forgive and find their way forward to a life and relationship they love. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you so much. What a great intro. So many juicy points to dive into. So good to be here.
Yes, I'm excited for this conversation. And first off, I want to invite you to tell us a little bit about you, about your work, for those that don't know you like I do.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes. Well, look, it's been an ever evolving kind of title, but at the moment, what I'm rolling with is body led spiritual business coach and creative rewilding guide. So I think that kind of sums it all up. I really am passionate about and I love helping women to come home to themselves. And that's something that we hear mentioned a lot in the coaching space. But this is really about coming home to the body in order to come home to self. Learning, as you said in that intro, to decode the messages that we are hearing from our bodies, stop making ourselves the problem and start trying to find and interpret these messages as the solution. So I do that by helping people reclaim their sovereign energy with a variety of modalities. So I am a Reiki master, healer, leader, and teacher. And I'm also trained with a unique modality called Kanika, which works with the bones. And that's been super transformational to layer in with the Reiki, the breath and breath work, which brings us back into our power. And I've been sharing and practicing yoga for over 20 years, which is all about alignment. So it's been the body, the body, the body, the body for such a long time. And then the creative process has been a really pivotal part, not only in my healing, but as a tool to use for emotional regulation and processing and deeper knowing of self. So that's something that I love to weave through all of my work because I think ultimately our creative energy is something that we suppress so much. And when we free that, that's really what takes us into the lightness, into the joy, and into our true purpose because we actually came here to create. We did not come here to struggle. We did not come here to be stuck in survival. And for many thousands of years, humanity has been in a very deep survival imprint. And we've hit that turning point now. So it's a really exciting time to be in transformational work. It absolutely fuels my soul on every level. I love helping people like you to launch and grow their soul businesses and do that deep healing work at the same time, because I truly believe actually that stepping into your purpose and activating your business is like the fastest way to catalyze growth as the whole human, as the whole woman. And that's really what we do in my work. It's not just about business, it's about relationships, it's about love, it's about being able to enjoy life, it's about freedom across the board in our time, in our bank accounts, in our bodies, in the way that we feel moment to moment. So, yay, that's a little bit about me. The movement is the revolution or the evolution I'm leading is for embodied light leadership. So, really helping people, there's a lot of, has been in the past, a lot of spiritual chat around 5D consciousness in the golden age is this mystical land that would kind of dissolve into light and float away. And that's not what's happening at all. We're actually bringing the light down into our bodies and anchoring that into the earth through the vessel of the body. So that's the deeper why I do what I do and why it's important for people and humanity at this time. And that's the conversation that I'd love to share with you guys today. Is it's been my journey. It's been a lifelong journey. It's been a 47-year journey, actually, to come home to my body. And I think that's one of those fundamental core wounds that many of us have that's not often spoken about.
Okay, so let's get into that. Obviously, the topic of this show is what now? So we're like, so what is that what now moment where you realized that actually your body had the answers, that, you know, you already knew what you needed to do? Because I feel like a lot of us, myself included, this is a journey that we have these conversations. I struggle to trust my body. I struggle to connect. So what was your like, okay, clearly this is what I need to listen to. Yeah. Tell us about that.
I think the key moment, and it's a great timing actually. So I was just teaching a masterclass training on storytelling, and I was showing something that I'd created around the body. And it was sort of like one of those 20 slide carousels. And on each one of those slides was the moment of something that I really struggled with, and then something that I learned. And then there was the next piece of the puzzle, and the next piece of the puzzle, and the next piece of the puzzle. And so many experiences in life, and many people will relate, where you feel like you're looping or repeating things. But actually, when you go back and look at it, it's like, oh, I was learning that. Oh, I was learning that piece. Oh, I was learning that piece. And where I got to right at the end of it, if you had to pin it down to like, what was the turning point moment? I think it was when I fell off my roller skates. It broke my tailbone. I think that was it, because I was expecting that to be that end. I was like, oh my gosh, I've broken something. It may be permanently damaged. I can't walk. But to rewind a little bit, what had happened was, yes, I'd had a lifetime of experiences where I felt like my body was betraying me, and indeed people and the world. So yes, trust, right? So our trust is so interwoven with our relationship with our own physical vessel. So I definitely had that, but the whole life story, right? So there was not a lot of that going on. Basically, he created these patterns of like hyper independence, rushing woman syndrome, fantastic book for anybody that feels time pressured, which is, you know, most people in modern Western society, by Dr. Libby Weaver. That was a major turning point, recognizing that I was that person. And burnout, which is multi-layered, right? So burnout in and of itself, we'll just pause on that, is at a spiritual level, not feeling safe to be fully human in our bodies. On a physical level, obviously, we've got the adrenal fatigue, which I read a book, and I'm sorry, I don't have the guy's name, but we can pop in the show notes, who's an authority on this matter, who estimates that up to 80% of the Western world has adrenal fatigue of some sort. Right? And if you just take a look around, there is coffee on every street corner now. That is not helping. It's not helping us feed this cycle and pattern. And then on a what kind of level would we call this? Maybe embodiment level. And this is quite a recent discovery that's quite curious to me, is burnout can happen when we're in denial of our true soul path. So we can be feeling like we're moving towards that, like trying really hard to do all the things that we're supposed to do. But we've got so much fear and so much coding in the subconscious that's pulling us in the other direction, that we are literally creating a push-pull energy. So if you think about it like a car, one foot on the gas, one foot on the brakes creates a burnout. And we will create that within ourselves. So that fear of fully stepping in and going all in on what your soul wants to do is also something that will just drain a lot of your energy. Should I or shouldn't I? I don't really trust myself, so I don't know if I should. And that's that kind of push-pull energy that will also create a lot of burnout. So I was very much sitting in that space. I knew that I wanted to transition out of being I was a wedding photographer, was my main job at that time. And I'd had all of these awakening moments that, like many of us, that's how we go, actually, I really want to help people. I really want to like leave a legacy and make the world a better place and share some of the things that I've learned with others. That's where we all start, all the coaches, all the healers, all the light workers of the world. So I was in that space. So I was trying to do all the things and create the things, and I was doing a lot of doing without having really a deep understanding of trauma, PTSD, frequency, all of these things that we'll have going on under the surface. And I saw this post from a coach who was talking all about burnout, the body, and how this affects you in business. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds exactly like me. I can't actually remember the exact nature of it, but it was along the lines of, you don't trust your body. You don't actually feel safe to be a human. And I really actually never heard anybody say that before. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me. I feel so seen. I really think that this person might have the specific codes that could help me to get out of these cycles, because I'm great at creating. I'm a manifestor. I've got huge energy. I've got lots of ideas. And I had no problems like birthing things. And I would always birth these little businesses, get to a certain point, and then something, and I didn't know what that something was, would go kaboom, and I'd like burn it all down. And there are a lot of people that come into my world, they're like that. They're like, I get 3/4 of the way through, and there's like an energy that takes over me where I just want to collapse the whole thing. And there's many layers to that too. But anyway, I started working with this beautiful woman that was working with the bones. And I'd never heard anyone talking about this either. This is Kiri Taylor, who is a New Zealand coach and healer who has pioneered this beautiful system called Kanika. So I was receiving this from her. Now, once I started receiving the coaching with the bone activations, it unlocks basically where the body is shut down from safety. Any emotional impact, any spiritual impact, any impact, physical impact to the body, whether in this lifetime or this comes through the patterning of our DNA from our family, from our ancestors. Like, we'll often create physical accidents that replicate an experience, an injury in the body that our parents have had or our ancestors. It's fascinating. So we started unlocking the bones, we call it, unlocking the bones. They carry all of the stories. They are the Akashic records of our body. So when we can find support for that moment, that lockdown, that freeze, and unravel that, then it opens the body into the possibility of a new experience. And when we say reclaim our sovereign energy, that's calling the parts of ourselves home that have been locked out from that experience. So we started doing this work. Next minute, I'm on the roller skates. You were thinking, what the frick has this got to do with the roller skates? I'm on the roller skates and thinking that I'm 12 years old again because pretty good on the skates. And my daughter was like, Mom, I don't think you should go down that little bit there. It's a little dip, but it was pretty fast. I'd already done it one time around the block, down this hill, bit of a speed demon. But I did. Off I went. Should listen to my child because she's very exciting. And my wheel hit a stone, and I just went down. I stopped instantly. You know how the skates, it's like you immediately stopped, and I went straight down on my tailbone. And thought, oh no. This is a very intense feeling. I was waiting for all the pain, but it was such an impact, because here's the thing with impact is it goes both ways. So we can lock the body down, and it can also unlock the body. And so this broke open my tailbone. Now, our tailbone is our anchor in a lot of ways. It's our compass through life because it guides our journey forward. And it's also much like a dog. When you growl your dog and they tuck their tailbone under in shame because they're, I'm sorry, you're a good dog. We also can do that as well. So yes, through physical impacts, but also through, the experience that we've had through life. And I had a lot of shame packed away there. That was mine from my life, but also what I was carrying, as I said, through from other places, spaces, and people. And so the release of that just cracked open like a completely new trajectory, almost like a timeline shift. It was super crazy how that all unfolded. And there'd been quite a lot of work already done. I'd already worked with NLP coaches, energy healers, Reiki, and then this was just getting into the real heart of the matter, the deepest layers of the body. So through that experience, basically it was like I spent the next probably 1 to 2 years like really working with the energy of shame and clearing shame from my whole body system, mostly through, interesting that we were just teaching on storytelling, mostly through sharing my story and coming, doing the healing work and coming to it from an empowered state. And in that process was that alchemy and that shift of healing. And it probably was like a good 2 years of that kind of work. But basically what that did is I want to say reconfigured my nervous system. So I built my capacity to be fully expressed as the person that I am, because we'll lock ourselves out of our past. And I know when I first stepped onto the path, I was like, I don't really want to be that version of me. I didn't like that version, the past version that made all the mistakes and the fuck ups and like all of the experiences that I deemed or judged as bad. And so a large part of what I do is I help people integrate, which is bringing all those parts of ourselves home. Really, that's what your sovereign energy coming home is, right? It's like calling that part of yourself home, bringing that energy back into your heart. And that kind of work combined with working with shame alchemy, sharing my stories, starting to engage in coaching and group spaces and retreats and coming back into the human experience. So it just anchored this safety to be fully expressed as who I am in all the parts that I am, and to share that with others. And then, the ultimate hero's journey is then we recognize that there's a lot of wisdom in that, and we can then get to go in and share that with others. So that was a big part of it, was that healing journey that brings us back home and reintegrates us. So it's that we're not wanting to be in the body. That's how we come back into being in the body. Then there's a physical side. There was a lot of cleansing that I had to do chose to do through diet and different kind of natural herb and supplements that could nourish the adrenals. But I think the biggest shift that I felt physically and through my energy came through really healing what I call the mother wound. And it's not my term. The mother wound is a term from psychology and pioneered by other people. But a lot of us have this deep disconnection from the earth herself. And this is where it links in with the body, because we are a micro of the macro. We have the whole of the universe encoded within us. We are like a holographic projection, meaning that if you tear off one small part of a hologram, the whole of the picture can be projected from that. And so we are like that with the earth. But we grow up, tromping around on the earth, thinking of it as a place, not as a living, breathing part of who we are. So that's been another really deep personal and spiritual part of this journey, is coming home to the earth herself and realizing that we can't be, a lot of light workers, they love the earth, they're here in service to the earth, and they treat the earth so well, but they don't treat their body as well as they treat the earth. So trying to kind of bring these two things back together, hence the cleansing of the body. Well, that's kind of coming back to that body is your temple, cleaning up, and the water that I drink and coding the water that I drink. Water is alive. Water is a consciousness. Water is running through our bodies, turns into our blood and our lymph, and we have the ability to change the structure of all of that. So the water, the food, just the quality of what is going in, these have all been pivotal parts as well. But yeah, deeply healing the mother wound. Like, this is something that I help clients with a lot, which is those early experiences that very sensitive beings often have, is that we'll have interesting roles that we play with our family where for some reason, it's like a light worker thing. For some reason, we feel, or we're able to, because we're the unawakened healer, we're able to take on the energy around us and transmute it through our field. And we just do that naturally. There's very small children, and we might grow up doing that. And so we're unconsciously taking on other people's stuff and other people's emotions and responsibility for things that aren't ours to hold. And we have that coding within us. We want to serve, we want to help, we want to heal. We don't even maybe know it yet, but there's a part of us that does. So we're doing that unconsciously. And so, by the time you get to however old you are, when you start doing your healing work, you might be carrying the load for quite a lot of things. So you mentioned in the intro about being able to to do and hold so much more when that's in alignment with our soul and with our sovereign being. Once we let go of all of the things that we're carrying for others that are actually not our responsibility. And so this is really exciting. It's how we're seeding the new earth, because we're moving from 3D and corded relationships where we're all kind of taking from each other all the time in this very dense experience of life, into sovereignty, which is we stand in our own pillar of light and we're interdependent, right? So every piece is a part of the whole, like nature. So, oh my gosh, that was really long, but there you go. It's available to us, right? And then you become self-sourcing, you become lit from within, and you have endless energy for the things that light you up when you learn to say no to the things that don't light you up.
I love what you just said about you become self-saucing.
Yeah, like a self-sourcing pudding, but
yeah.
not.
So yeah, there was a lot in there. I know that the shame piece has been huge that we've talked about. So for those that are listening and are new, like I was when I came into your world, and there's a lot of things that I find really blow my brain out. Like I can't human it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For those that are listening that are new, can you explain maybe a bit more about the power of accepting of the shame? And because you talked about owning all the pieces of yourself, because I think that's a huge one for everyone.
Yeah.
And then can we talk about, because you mentioned the 5D consciousness, and I know this is a term that I find like, what is that?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's start with those two things.
Two very different things. So we'll start with the shame and the shadow work. So, yeah, and actually it's really cool to talk about the two together, because you can kind of, for us to actually ascend, which is us moving towards a 5D, is simply a different frequency. So all matter is vibrating at a certain speed, basically. And the 3D that we're actually in 3D, 4D, and 5D, and we're oscillating a lot at the moment, is the 3D world is really dense. It is about scarcity. It's about kind of pitting us against each other. You know, a lot of the separation, it's all about, like, it's all built on separation. And this is where the body thing comes in, is that we don't even feel connected to our bodies, but then we're also not really connected to the spiritual aspect of ourselves. And so where we're going towards 4D is when you're like having an awakening and you're like, I'm starting to feel like there's something more than just that. And then when we move to 5D, it's like we're in sovereignty, we're in community, there's no competition. We understand our partners much more love-based, and we hold the polarity of life. So 3D is duality, everything sort of fights against each other. It's one or the other, it's this or that. Everything feels hard, everything's a struggle. And then by the time we get to 5D, it's more unity consciousness, that equilibrium that I talk about, balance, flow, harmony, and polarity, because people will interchange these words and they are not the same. They do not have the same meaning. Polarity is being able to hold the ends, the extremes together, like yin and yang. That's polarity. They work together. So yeah, if you think going from like discord to harmony, to simplify it, I just taught a 2-hour masterclass training on oneness in my Reiki teaching series. So it's all very fresh in my mind, and how to put it like super simple. All we are doing, like through the body with this ascension process, is, and this is what we relate into shame, is we are creating more. We are 99.9% space anyway. How freaky is that? Quantum physics is amazing. Now it's like kind of layering over these spiritual concepts that we've had for a long time. So we are infinite possibility, but in and through our whole body, the body is a record keeper of every experience that we've ever had through this lifetime and others, right? And so when we've had a lot of hard experiences and have had a lot of duality, we haven't been able to reconcile those things. And so they are still fighting within us somewhere. So we'll have lockdowns in our energy field. Life feels hard. We've got repeating patterns that don't serve us. That's the kind of thing that will show up. And as we move more towards the 5D consciousness, it's basically bringing those things into coherence, right? Healing is simply being able to feel different about the things that have happened in the past. So in that, you are literally lightening up. So if you think about it this way, any kind of trauma, as in, then people have got different definitions for that, but in the context of this conversation, think of it as anything from the past that's not resolved, that's creating that feeling of density war. So that's going to create a heaviness in you. You're going to feel a bit tapped out, like you don't have capacity for receiving a lot more. The more that we bring into right relationship within us, right, we are literally letting go of the weight of the world from our shoulders, of density in our field. We've got more space to receive more light. And because of where Earth is sitting at the moment, we are getting blasted with light from the sun and from space. And this light is helping us with this process of lightening up, becoming enlightened beings, but it's coming in and through our physical body. So the more we can care for the body on a physical level, that's going to help. And also we need to be doing our work, and our shadow work and our integration work and our shame alchemy is what creates the space to receive that light. So in 5D, we're still in our bodies. We're still going to be in this physical vessel. It's just changing the form of it into a more crystalline structure. So we are here to be like the anchors for this light, not to dissolve, float away, and spiritually bypass the human experience. Because it's the human experience itself, all of the shit that life throws you, is the catalyst for change, right? We didn't have that. We wouldn't bother to have the awakening, to find the healing, to do the work, to lighten up, to become the thing, the 5D version of ourselves. So yeah, in the past, and probably before I was really involved a lot in the spiritual community, there's definitely it's a little bit still out there, a bit of a love and light, we don't have to feel any bad feelings. We can just, toxic positivity kind of stuff. Just be love, just be the light. And it's like, that's actually not how it works.
Yeah, and I think yeah. And I think that's where maybe a lot of the resistance, like between the spiritual community and other, I don't know. But when you think about like hippies, like that's kind of the picture that people have in their heads, right? And I totally always wanted to be a hippie as a child, by the way.
Bit of
yeah. But it's like, well, the reality is just that you're actually dealing with all your shit and moving through it.
Yeah, we came here to do that. That's that's the whole purpose of the Earth School, is to evolve our soul and evolve consciousness as a collective. And we do that through being activated, aka triggered, aka those gnarly experiences. And most people want to avoid that, still. We could probably safely say that most people would rather avoid that than dive into their shadows and look at all the things about themselves that they don't like. But ultimately that's actually what self-love is. Self-love is not like just love. It's actually looking at the things that you don't want to see and moving through what is to be learned from that, and then choosing consciously to love yourself and bring that part of yourself home. Because our shadows are not 3D would look at it like this. Shadow is bad, light is good. And 5D is like these things exist together. Without one, you can't have the other. So there is no joy without pain. Like, what does joy mean if there's no suffering, But we don't have to like hang on to our suffering as well. It's like we just get to choose to love ourselves in our shadow and in our light. And that's not, it's easy to say. It's certainly not easy to do. We will always be blind to our shadows too. And that's why we need guides. We need our healers and our coaches there's just mirrors for those things that we ourselves are blind to. And the shadows, something that really shifted for me was when someone said the shadows are not the bad aspects of you. They are the rejected aspects of you. And I was just like, no. So if you're a person that's triggered a lot by rejection, it's because you reject a lot of things about yourself. You've got some shadow work to do. You've got to deepen into your self-love. And, what do we do when we reject ourselves is that we ashamed of that version of ourselves. We hide that version of ourselves. That's why we can't see it. We become really good at hiding them. We'll just have some thing that pops up in our life and you think, well, why does that always happen? And, with your moving from 3D to 4D, you'll be asking, why? You'll be going like, why does this always happen to me? And then you'll start saying, I wonder why this is happening. End of. And then once you've gone through a more growth mindset, or you're on your healing journey, it's like everything is happening for me. Oh my gosh, like what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? And that's when actually things become easier and we get to change our trajectory, and we realize that we are the creators of our life, right? And that's the most empowering state to be in.
As one of your clients, I know about this process, but I'm wondering if you want to share with the audience a bit more about how we go through this shadow work and that how we bring it to light and some of your processes in there. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll share one of my processes because there's lots of different processes out there. But yeah, I'm just thinking like, to link this in with healing from burnout too. I think we have with this, is that right? Because basically anything that's, I'm just thinking in terms of shadows, like how does this drain your energy? How is it draining your energy? Because it drains your energy because there's an attachment to the past, that there's still energy flowing into a situation or something that happened that has not been forgiven, that has not been resolved, and that is a drain on your energy. And so, when we have a lot of that in our lives, we can end up feeling really exhausted and really tapped out at a soul level as well as the physical level. So yeah, lots of different ways to address your shadows. For me, and especially if we come back into the shame conversation, like there was shame for me, shame, is it guilt or shame? Guilt, I think, is the absolute lowest in terms of vibration, and shame sits on top of that. So guilt and shame, they're friends, let's say, anyway.
They're definitely
Very
friends.
They hang out together and they have little shame parties. But most of us are just like, oh, I don't want to look at that. That feels awful. That's really frightening for us. And they're at the root chakra, right? So we can't really build anything great for ourselves when we have a root chakra that is really bogged down in a lot of guilt and shame. It's going to also affect like the sacral. So our ability to feel safe to be here, safe in your body, safe in your life, safe in your business, safe to receive from life. So it's going to lock down the abundance. And it's certainly, we can't go into a creative state if we have a lot of guilt and shame, because they're going to create a fear-based kind of experience of life. And that was me. I was here really in that deeply. Like it was really, a lot of it was showing up. And this is just the data or the feedback of life, is that no matter how much I did, money wouldn't come in. Or if money came in, it would just disappear, to the point that we had a family business that went down in the recession and went in early 2000s, the first one. And the guilt and the shame around that layered upon what was already in there. This was before the roller skates set me free, but it was huge, right? It was so huge. And I found once I started working with this business coach and actually showing up and doing the things that were aligned to where my soul wanted to take me, all the scary stuff like launching coaching programs and showing up on social media and all of that stuff, I just kept hitting this same roadblock, and we'd always just tap into the body. So this is our process, and this process, Kiri, is that we'll go into the body and ask the body and do some somatic tracking, which is, you sort of scan internally and you find how that feels. And when I first started doing this, I believed that I couldn't do it. I was so disconnected from my body and I was so lacking in trust that I was like, I can't do it. Or if I feel like I'm getting something, I'll doubt that, or I won't want to say it out loud. So it was really just having someone hold me through that over and over and over and over till I got better at it. And then getting better at it, but also feeling like each time I tapped in, I was getting the same place in my body and the same feeling. And I was like, all right, we've done lots of healing work, energetic work. We've done lots of talking about this. We've done lots of all sorts of different things. What is left? We've done mindset work. We need to have all of these things, but there's one crucial piece that we absolutely must have too, and that is an embodiment practice, something that we actually physically do with our body that creates a different experience around that thing. So I was like, well, what can I do? My coach had given me some of her processes and they were helpful. I was like, I feel like there's something else because I'm an artist at heart. Well, I'm an artist, but I hadn't been doing art for a really long time. But I was like, I feel like this could be really powerful. I know that art is how, many artists transmute their pain into beauty, right? And ultimately, that's what shadow work is. So I was like, maybe if I combined my other skills that I have with my Reiki practice and some intuitive movement or some yoga and some releasing of sound, that this might really help. So I went out to my art studio and set up sacred space. So, you'll see things on the internet like people going, sacred rage, you just punch your pillows and you'll feel better. And it's like, yeah, that's good. You'll get some energy out of your body. But how about a process where we actually go into the body, awaken all of the senses, and then actually take the mind all the way out of this? And this was what was different about some of the other processes I've seen. It was like, I'm not going to journal, I'm not going to use a lot of words. I'm just going to go into the body because I feel like I'll really get the truth. And I don't have to try and understand it and unpick it all because I'd already done all that, done the mindset, done the coaching, done the talked to death. Right. So there's a point where the words have to stop and we have to address the body. So set up sacred space, calling in all my guides and ancestors, just like I do for a Reiki healing session, but for myself, and allowed myself to be held by, whoever or whatever is supporting us in the unseen realm. Got some paints out, had a very specific thing that I was wanting to move, and did some breath work because I really find like that always just activates like this amazing connection to body, spirit matter all at the same time, higher consciousness. And then I was like, right, I'm just gonna let this out of my body. And I was really in a creative flow with it. And I was kind of just asking my higher self, okay, what do I do next? Right. I've done some breath work. Right. And then it was a little bit of light language or toning or vocalizing wanted to come through. Okay, cool. And then I just felt all of the emotions start to rise at this point. All of this anger, all of this frustration, mostly it was that on the top. Why can't I get past this fucking thing? Anyway, sorry, I swore on your podcast. So I was like, I let that ride. I was like, I'm going to give myself permission to really go here. And I had just one color of paint, smeared all over my hands and just started letting rip and just letting it all move out of my body. So again, without the thought, and I just said whatever I felt wanted to come out, all the things that we don't allow ourselves to say, all the things we might judge as being, bad or wrong or not the truth, let it all out, no filter. And I was like, whew, wow. And I felt a physical release at that place in my body that was always locked down. And I was like, ooh, holy crap, we're onto something here. Like, what just happened? I was like, that's cool. I feel better, but I also feel in a bit of a state now of like ripped open a wound kind of thing. And I feel a bit fragile. I was like, there needs to be a resolution, just like in energy healing. If we take something away, we replace it. We're always, bringing in both. So the next step or the guidance was to ask myself, how do I, without this in my life, how do I want to feel? And what does that feel like? And really just going into feelings and what does the body want that to look like? So different colors, different sorts of movements with the body. And it was almost like recoding and repatterning the nervous system. And we talk about, rewiring the mind and new neural pathways. It sort of felt like that was all happening in and through my whole physical body. And then what was the final part of that process was, just sitting there and actually allowing myself to fully receive all of that. And then maybe even visualize like what's possible next and then close down the space. So I've now turned that into a process I call creative alchemy, which, we do within our coaching containers and on retreats and things like that. And it's always, that's kind of the the framework, but then we kind of layer upon it depending on what it is that we're moving through. But I have found it to be so transformational. Anytime that I'm feeling blocked or I'm stuck in anger, particularly, that's my not self thing manifesto. There's a lot of anger. And underneath that is always the true emotion. So yeah, I've found it super, super transformational for my body. I had this big, I started doing it on my own as well as teaching it in our spaces. And I had this huge, big, like a panel of you know, what do you call it? Chipboard panel that builders use, kind of size piece of board. And over the course of a year, anytime I felt something stuck in my body and I couldn't figure it out with my brain, which is like never, right? I would go and do this process. Sometimes it would be 5 minutes, a really short version. And then at the end of the year, when I zoomed out and I looked at this, I suppose you call it an image, I was like, oh my gosh, it actually looks like a body. It looks like a torso. But the whole point is I was never trying to make it look like anything. It was just purely that embodiment practice, that physical release, repatterning, recoding, and such a powerful way to release, but then also reclaim, bring back, like, what's the aspect of you that's being locked out in that process, and really bringing them home. Because there's always an experience. There's always a version of self that, yeah, we're just holding them at arm's length. We haven't quite forgiven ourselves. So that's really the key part is, and I do this in healing sessions over and over again, even when people are truly the victim of something awful has happened to them, but we're always holding one little thread where we're not forgiving ourselves. And so it's that part. When you bring that energy home, you now actually have literally more energy. And so you start to build and rebuild all those places where energy's been leaking and depleted. Because also with all of that unresolved stuff, it's like we'll create patterns of behavior that don't serve us, like overgiving or undercharging or being too busy. And those are all just, you know, energy leaks.
It's so I love everything that you talk about. And I'm a big fan of the creative alchemy sessions. I know that anytime that I'm feeling frustrated, I now like to go and throw some paint around, and it really, really helps release that. So 100% on the embodiment practices. But I know also another thing that I struggle with is to like remember that that's the thing to do. It's a journey and it's a process, and you have to, you know, consciously make those choices to, all right, this is actually what I need to do. I'm not going to be able to move forward. I'm not going to be able to feel better in my body until I deal with this. So for those of you that are listening and are, hey,
yeah, I was going to say, don't make yourself wrong for that too, because that's all of us, everyone, no matter how involved we say we are, we will always resist something where there is like a powerful payoff for us on the other side. We're curious beings. So the more resistance there is, the more you know there's something really juicy for you on the other side of that session.
And I know, because we have similar art stories, I know that one of my biggest resistance is to actually doing the creative process, because there's like a shame piece there around it not being valued. Like, you know, there's no there's no value in creative process, so therefore it should be at the bottom of the list, when in fact it needs to be at the top of the list.
And I love that you said that, because, you know, we are taught that through school and systems trauma and, you know, the high art world versus, you know, we're very quickly taken out of our creative power. And I believe that's got to be 100% intentional, because when we can see that the value of it is that we get to live a really juicy life, that is the payoff. That is the relearning that we get to do through that process of unstructured creative play versus I'm trying to make some art for the purpose of, whatever it is. It usually has a different sort of a purpose. And the unstructured creative play with no set outcome is the medicine for the sacral. That is what the sacral chakra loves. It's like the inner child. It's the joy. It gives us permission to expand and to experiment and to play and all of these things that, and again, it's a 3D world paradigm that if we're not doing and we're producing an outcome that we can measure, that we can quantify, and there's very limited systems that we have, then it's not worth doing, when it's so the complete opposite, and that it's the most valuable. It's just that it's so much harder to, marry that in when we are still operating in this other world. And
when you're still surrounded by the energy of permission, the energy of justifying, all of that stuff,
Yeah. And, this is an interesting thing too, is that whenever if you look about in terms of energy and abundance and manifestation, is that anytime I've allowed myself to go, like we're talking about the shadow work there, but also there's the pleasure aspect of like actually just playing in that space as well. And that, again, that's something that you're feeding your soul. You are source. That's source energy. Creative energy is source energy, is what we are made of. It is that golden current that's running through us all. And so when you come into alignment with that and allow yourself to play in that space, I can't tell you how many times I've, gone, you know what, I'm going to throw out the to-do list and I'm just going to go play in my joy. And then you come into like new inquiries or someone saying yes to your offer because number one, you've detached from the need and all of the heady stuff. And number two, you've aligned to your highest frequency, which is joy, and you're actually in super flow with God consciousness, which is the highest state of abundance that there is, right? So it's like shifting into like a new, I call it the true abundance codex. It's this medicine wheel that I'm kind of breathing life into once I unhooked from the need for money to make me feel powerful, good, or valuable human, and then had to completely come away from that and learn about all these other ways that feed my soul. And it's allowing myself all of that that's brought my energy back. And a big one is unhooking from time pressure, which is very linked into what you're saying. It's like, how much can we do and produce? And that puts time pressure on it, and that puts squeeze on all of the organs in our body. And then we always feel like no matter what we do, it's never enough. And that just is exhausting, to really be able to breathe out and allowing those moments where we come into something like creative play, where we're accessing flow state. Then you are in a 5D consciousness in that moment, and you'll find that time either disappears altogether, because that's what happens. Time's an illusion of created by this separation, or you're just in so much enjoyment that it feels like it goes on forever. But mostly the disappearing. You lose the conscious awareness of time. The opposite of like sitting in the doctor's office waiting, thinking, oh my gosh, 1 minute, it felt like an hour. So that creates a more abundant state as well, but also, bringing your energy back online has a lot to do with what I call soul alignment, right? Coming into what it is that you are truly, truly here for. And this, we call it your highest timeline. The more that we shed who we're not, the more that we come into that alignment, the more energy that we have to fulfill the tasks that we need to do. Like you look at people that are really, really successful and how much they're seemingly holding or doing, but it's like they've actually come into this super flow. They've cleared out all this root chakra stuff. They're not getting guilt and shame, bog them down, and they've come into this been able to 100x their capacity through these states of lightness and doing what they love, doing what they actually truly love, not because they're chasing something outside of themselves. So this is a big one for really finding the energy to do what you want to do. And that's happened for me. So I've gone from being exhausted and tired. And I wanted to speak into this too. So the journey, like after the broken tailbone and the rebuilding and coming back home to myself, home to my body, and continually showing up for this shadow work and all of this stuff that we do over and over and over again, I actually felt more exhausted than ever. And I was teetering on my face was stretched to the very edges of where one can go before one's like this wall, including life itself. Like it was huge. And what I learned from my embodiment mentor was that when we have been living outside the body for so long, the body's in a hyper state to try it because it's in survival mode, because it's like, fuck, where are you? You're not really here for me. And then when you come back in, it's like, oh, I can let go. And so it receives the exhaustion fully from all the ways that you've been avoiding all the things you've been feeling. And that is a heavy feeling. And it's odd. It's an odd feeling of heaviness. You're like, I'm supposed to be feeling lighter. I thought it was work, but you'll feel maybe heavier and tireder. And it's recovery, basically. It's recovery from adrenal burnout. It's recovery from trying to live outside of ourselves, and you and I have this similar chat around the people that we serve, and that, and I had this experience. It was one part of my getting started with this all was watching life happen around me, but feeling like I wasn't really in it. Because people might say, what does that mean, not being in your body? And it's like, well, you'll be ruled by time. You'll feel bad about yourself because you'll be like, I should feel really grateful for my life, but for some reason I just can't receive it, even though it looks like it's going really well right now, because it's a hangover from the past, right? It's not the present, but you're not able to be in the present because you haven't brought your spirit fully back into your body. So you can't receive it. So there's that. That's a sign that if anyone's listening to this and they're like, what are you talking about? How will I know if that's me? That's the kinds of thing. And we can really gaslight ourselves on that, going, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be happy with what I've got? And the answer is you can be. But there's only one way out, and that is through. Like we just can't avoid. This is the journey, right? We have to be available for activations, triggers, hard stuff, because we know that that's going to lead us to a higher plane and a higher octave of living and experience. I was going somewhere else before and I can't remember where I was going, Kiri. Whatever. I think that's it. It's just to be aware that you may have that healing crisis as you start to come home where you feel more exhausted. And so had to really learn to rest for a few years. Had to really learn to slow down, to stop, to actually almost force myself to rest, to schedule in time away and sit in the discomfort of I'm on the couch and I'm sitting still and I feel very uncomfortable right now, and I'm still going to sit here and not do anything for another 20 minutes because I don't need to rush on to the next thing. So, journey through rushing is a trauma response. Being like, I need to respond immediately is a trauma response in itself, or not being able to sit with ourselves and do nothing. There's some trauma there. And then the journey is like, there's another, you go on this pendulum swing from rushing woman. And a lot of people will be in that state, a lot of women in particular, and they'll say, oh, I'm really in my masculine energy and I was doing too much and I got burnt out. Like, no, you weren't in your masculine energy. We might have been, but you were in a wounded state, whether it was masculine or feminine. Usually it's the wounded feminine that doesn't feel safe to trust in life, to trust in herself. So you go through that journey of like, the burnout, the hustle, blame it on masculine. It's not. You got to slow right down. You got to learn to receive. You got to do all of that stuff. And then quite often, and this is often gone on the other way, where then you can actually start swamping. You've gone so much into your flow. You've gone so much into your lazy queen energy. You put on weight. You lose motivation. You're actually freaking bored. You're actually healed. You need to get back on the horse and like re-inject a bit of fire in there, and then it's like coming back into the middle. So this is like healing the wounded feminine, the rushing woman, the one that can't trust, that feels like she needs to control and hold every pieces, otherwise the world will blow up. And we got to heal that version of ourselves, but then we've also got to do our inner masculine healing, where it's like, okay, and what does a healthy, integrated masculine energy feel like in my life? What is that actually? How does that want to feel and express? And, for me, that's just about actually slowing down, but that's actually being really precise with what I do. So coming into more quality of time and the frequency and the intention behind what I'm doing versus how much can I do, which is kind of where I was at in that wounded feminine state. And so, we're always on this journey, but it's helpful to really know those stages and identify them so you can go, okay, what do I need to do here? And for me, this anchoring through the masculine energy has really been a lot about getting back to the gym, getting back on the yoga mat, really nurturing my digestive system and working with the fire energy and the fire element a bit more, getting a bit more again, but coming at it from that. Now I feel safe in my body and I trust my energy and I trust myself, and therefore have more capacity to do more. So it's like, there's been a bit of a thing I've seen out there where it's like, you got to stop. You can't hustle and no pushing and and that's like, yeah. But there's a journey and it depends on the frequency at which you're coming at it. So when you've taken that journey to calm the nervous system, to come home to your body, to feel safe, to be fully here and anchored, then you can do so much more. And it's okay to hustle here and there and put a bit more energy out because you're not coming at it from a trauma response. Coming at it from, I've got so much energy, so many ideas, I've got so much creativity that I want to share with the world. So
there are so many amazing nuggets that you've shared with us.
Thank you.
That was okay. Right. That was so good. So many great embodiment practices that you've talked about and why it's so important to have those and to nurture and love all parts of yourself. Now, I'm going to start wrapping this up, but before we go, I love to end my episodes with a few things. Deb, if you don't mind, would you please share with us the best advice you ever received?
Now, before we dive into my favorite part, the best and worst advice Deb's ever received, I've just got a little something for you. If you've been listening and thinking, I want that, I want to feel light and I want to trust again, I invite you to grab my free Choose Desire Roadmap. It's a simple guide to help you start reconnecting back to yourself and your desires. You can grab it in the description below.
Oh, best advice I ever received. I think it was, it does land quite quickly. I was at an essential oils gathering and it was one of its just biggest, it still is like my guiding light. She said the purpose of us here on earth is to create, is not, and most people are stuck in this suffering. And that's what we are here to do. And I know that doesn't sound like a big advice, but it's just been like, oh my goodness, how much energy am I wasting on the past, on my pain, on my trauma? And actually, yes, that's what we're here for. We're here to create and co-create with life. And so what gets to shift when I shift my lens out of being in a victim state all the time into I am the creator of my life and I'm here to create. And that just changed everything. So that's my little nugget that I'd love everyone to take away. It's that's truly what you are here for. And anything else is coming from fear, scarcity, lack. And it's not the truth of who you be.
Which leads me into my next question, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Oh God, so much. Where would I even start? I thought who's given me the worst. Yeah, look at that. Just dropped in. My art school tutor, was it? Or one of them. They basically, so we did 4 years at art school, right, to become artists in the world. And very towards, like really close to the end of the journey, they sat us down and said, you're probably not going to make any money as an artist. So these are your other career options that you want to look at. You want to be a teacher, you want to be a wedding photographer.
So that's at the end of the 4 years.
What's that?
So that was at the end of the 4 years.
Yes.
Way to inspire those artists out into the world.
Yeah, here's infinity, which is what creative energy is, and we played in it for 4 years, and expand your mind and change the world with your thought. But if you want to make money, you'll have to put it into these 2 boxes, which is, this is the exciting direction, I suppose, that we're moving in the world now. Like if we start to marry higher understanding of consciousness and how the universe itself works through, the mechanics of quantum physics with our creative energy and technology, what could be possible? I'm excited.
Okay. And lastly, before we wrap up, is there any last piece of wisdom you would like to share with our audience? And as well, how can my audience get in touch with you?
Amazing. I guess it's just bringing it back to the body, is that, how you relate to your body is how you will relate to every single thing in your whole entire life. So learn to speak the language of your body, learn to decode the messages that you are feeling through pain or through disharmony, and let that be your guiding light in you. You will not ever be led astray. If you want to connect with me, my website is debbielimcreative.com. I'm on Facebook it's Debbie Lim Creative, I think, but just look up Debbie Lim Creative, and same on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Deb. This has been a really awesome chat.
Thank you so much. So amazing to be here.